The alarm systems across Keleth 9 screamed warnings that had not been heard in 300 years. Something massive had just torn through the fabric of space itself, emerging from a rupture that glowed with impossible colors. The trade station's sensors struggled to understand what they were seeing. The ship was enormous. 12 kilometers of dark metal that seemed to drink in all light that touched it. Strange patterns covered its hull, geometric designs that hurt to look at for too long. The vessel drifted without power, without life signs, without any of the normal radiation that active ships produced. It was a corpse floating in the void. Within hours, the Confluence Council received the reports. 7 species had worked together for 30,000 years to build their peaceful federation. They had explored thousands of systems, cataloged millions of worlds, and studied the ruins of a dozen extinct civilizations. But nothing in their vast databases matched this derelict. Threlvar received the assignment 3 days after the discovery. She was a Skrithan, her body long and covered in pale blue chitin with forearms perfect for delicate work. As the Confluence's chief xenoarchaeologist, she had spent 2 centuries studying dead civilizations. This would be her greatest challenge. The salvage ship approached the derelict carefully. Threlvar stood in the observation dome, all 4 of her eyes fixed on the massive vessel. Her team included specialists from 5 different species, each chosen for their expertise. They brought cutting tools, sensors, translation computers, and enough weapons to deal with automated defenses. They found the weapons unnecessary. The ship was silent, dead. When their torches cut through the outer airlock, they found corridors filled with stale air that analysis said was 45,000 years old. The number seemed impossible. 45,000 years ago, the Confluence did not exist. The oldest species in their federation had barely discovered fire. The ship's interior was built for creatures smaller than most Confluence species. The doorways were narrow, the corridors tight. Equipment sat in storage rooms, labeled in a flowing script that their computers could not read. Threlvar photographed everything, making notes in her precise way. The builders had 2 arms, 2 legs, forward-facing eyes. They were small, probably fragile, but they had built this massive vessel. 3 weeks into the exploration, they found the bridge. It was a large room at the ship's center, filled with stations and screens. Everything was dark and cold. Threlvar approached the central chair carefully, running her scanning tools over its surface. The chair was built for comfort on long voyages. Whoever sat here had expected to spend years in this room. The moment her tool touched the main console, everything changed. Lights flickered to life across the bridge. Screens illuminated with symbols that flowed like water. A sound filled the room like breathing, like a heartbeat, like something waking from a very long sleep. The holographic projector activated. A figure appeared above the central chair, and Threlvar's team stumbled backward in shock. It was one of the builders, rendered in blue light. It stood perhaps 6 feet tall with pale skin and dark hair. Its face was expressive in a way that made Threlvar uncomfortable. It looked almost alive. The figure spoke. The words were meaningless sounds, but the translation computer began working immediately, comparing patterns and structure. The figure kept talking, repeating phrases until slowly the computer began to understand. The first translated words appeared on Threlvar's screen. I am witness of stars. I am the memory keeper. I have walked far. I have walked long. Threlvar activated her own translator, speaking slowly. I am Threlvar of the Skrithan people. We are the Confluence. Who are your builders? The hologram turned to face her directly. Its eyes seemed to look into her very soul. My builders called themselves human. They walked among the stars for 10,000 years. They shaped worlds and lifted up those who crawled in darkness. They fought wars that scarred space itself, and then they chose to be silent. What happened to them? Threlvar asked. The question that mattered most. I will show you, the AI replied. But first you must understand what they were. You must see their glory and their shame. Only then will you understand their choice. The bridge came fully alive now. Power flowed through systems that should have been dead for millennia. The other members of Threlvar's team shouted warnings, but nothing happened. The ship was not attacking. It was simply waking up. Witness of stars gestured, and the screens filled with images. Worlds. Hundreds of worlds. Thousands of worlds. Green planets and blue oceans and cities that stretched across continents. Ships that moved between the stars like schools of fish. Space stations the size of moons. The human empire had been vast beyond comprehension. We were explorers first, the AI said. We left our birth world in small ships, barely capable of reaching our nearest neighbor. Within 5,000 years, we had touched 10,000 suns. We were not the strongest species. We were not the smartest. But we never stopped. We never gave up. That was humanity's gift and humanity's curse. Threlvar watched the images change. Humans meeting other species, sharing technology, helping them reach the stars. The Vorthak, who looked like armored bears. The Klendri, who were elegant and bird-like. Dozens of species that humanity had found and uplifted. None of those species existed in modern times. They had all vanished into history. What happened to your allies? One of Threlvar's team asked. The AI's expression became sad. The harvesters came. They came from the dark between galaxies. They consumed everything they touched. They could not be reasoned with. They could not be stopped. They could only be fought. The images turned dark. Massive organic ships that looked like they had grown instead of being built. Fleets of them, thousands upon thousands. Planets stripped clean of all life. Entire systems going dark as the harvesters passed through. And then humanity at war. The images showed tactics that made Threlvar's blood cold. Humans did not fight like civilized species. They used tricks and traps. They sacrificed their own ships to destroy enemy vessels. They fought with a creativity that bordered on madness. One image showed a human ship ramming directly into a harvester vessel, both exploding in nuclear fire. The war lasted 3,000 years, Witness of Stars said quietly. We lost 6,000 worlds. Trillions died. But we won. We stopped them. We pushed them back into the darkness from which they came. Then where are the humans now? Threlvar demanded. If they won, where did they go? The AI turned to her. That is what I must show you. But first I must complete my mission. This ship has walked through space for 45,000 years, waiting for others to find us, waiting to see if the galaxy had grown strong enough to hear our story. Now you have come, and I must take you to see what humanity became. The deck beneath their feet began to hum. The ancient engines, impossibly still functional, began to warm up. Threlvar's communicator exploded with panicked messages from the ships outside. The derelict was moving. After 45,000 years of drifting, it had awakened and chosen a destination. Where are you taking us? Threlvar asked, trying to keep the fear from her voice. Witness of Stars smiled, an expression that held both joy and sorrow. To the place where humanity made its choice. To the worlds where they decided that silence was better than screaming. Come, children of the new age. Let me show you what the old age left behind. The massive vessel began to move, turning toward the galactic core where the oldest stars burned. Behind it, confluent ships scrambled to follow. Weapons ready, not understanding that they were not prisoners but witnesses to something far greater than they could imagine. The Confluence Council met an emergency session, while the ancient human ship continued its journey toward the galactic core. Half the council wanted to destroy it immediately. The other half wanted to study it. Threlvar listened to the arguments from her position aboard the enduring testimony, knowing that neither side truly understood what they faced. She had spent 3 weeks now living inside the ship, walking its corridors, studying its technology. Witness of Stars had opened many of the sealed sections, revealing wonders that made modern confluence technology look primitive. The humans had mastered energy production that seemed to violate physics. Their medical bays could repair almost any injury. Their manufacturing systems could build complex machines from raw atoms. But it was the small things that fascinated Threlvar most. She found living quarters with personal belongings still in place, clothing designed for comfort rather than function, art on the walls, paintings and photographs showing humans in peaceful moments. Books, thousands of books containing stories and poems and ideas. These were not the artifacts of a warrior race. They were the belongings of people who valued beauty and thought deeply about existence. You seem confused, Witness of Stars said, appearing beside her as she examined a child's toy in one of the quarters. The AI could manifest anywhere in the ship, and Threlvar had stopped being startled by its sudden appearances. Your people built weapons that could destroy planets, Threlvar said, holding up the small stuffed animal. But they also made this for their children. I do not understand how the same species could do both. The AI's holographic face showed something like pride. That was humanity's nature. We could be gentle and violent, creative and destructive, wise and foolish. We contained multitudes, as one of our poets said. That complexity was our strength and our greatest weakness. Witness of Stars gestured. and the walls of the room dissolved into holographic displays. Threlvar found herself standing in the middle of a human city during their golden age. Massive towers reached toward the sky. Vehicles moved through the air in organized patterns. Humans walked the streets in thousands, all different colors and shapes, talking and laughing together. "We were never a unified species," the AI explained. "We fought among ourselves for thousands of years. Wars over resources, over beliefs, over nothing at all. We were violent by nature. Our world shaped us that way. We evolved as hunters, persistent predators who would chase prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. We never learned when to stop." The scene changed. Now Threlvar saw humans meeting another species for the first time. The Vorthak, massive bear-like creatures, approached a human landing site with weapons raised, but the humans did not shoot. They waited. They tried to communicate. It took months, but eventually the two species began to understand each other. "We could have conquered them," Witness of Stars said. "Our weapons were superior. But we remembered our own history. We remembered how it felt to be divided and afraid. So we chose differently. We shared our technology. We helped them reach the stars." We did the same for 17 other species. Threlvar watched as the scene showed humans working alongside aliens, building ships and stations together, teaching and learning. The images were beautiful, showing cooperation between wildly different forms of life. "But then the harvesters came," Threlvar said quietly. The AI nodded, and the scene darkened. The happy images disappeared, replaced by something from nightmares. The harvester ships were organic monstrosities, grown rather than built. They moved like living things, like predators stalking prey. When they touched a world, it died. All life consumed, all resources taken, nothing left but a barren rock. "The Vorthak worlds fell first," Witness of Stars said, its voice heavy with old grief. "We tried to save them. We sent fleets, but we did not understand what we faced. The harvesters were not like us. They did not communicate. They did not negotiate. They simply consumed. By the time we understood this, 3 species had been completely destroyed." The holographic display showed battles that made Threlvar's skin crawl. Human ships fought with desperate creativity. One vessel released its entire atmosphere as a weapon, freezing a harvester ship in a cloud of ice. Another overloaded its reactor and crashed into an enemy formation, destroying dozens of ships. A third used its gravity drive to pull an asteroid into a harvester fleet at relativistic speeds. "You did not fight fair," Threlvar observed. "No," the AI agreed. "We fought to survive. Humans learned warfare on a world where being second meant death. We used every advantage, every trick, every desperate strategy we could imagine. The harvesters were stronger than us. They had more ships. They could replace their losses faster, but they could not predict what we would do next. They could not understand why we kept fighting when victory seemed impossible." The scene shifted to show a human commander, standing in a damaged bridge, giving orders as his ship fell apart around him. His face was bloodied and exhausted, but his eyes burned with determination. He ordered his crew to evacuate, then set his ship on a collision course with a harvester vessel 10 times its size. The explosion was visible from 3 systems away. "We lost millions of ships," Witness of Stars continued. "Billions of people died. The war consumed everything. Our art, our culture, our dreams of peaceful exploration, all of it burned away in the fire of survival. We became what we needed to be to win. We became monsters." Threlvar watched in horror as the displays showed the evolution of human warfare. Weapons that dissolved matter at the molecular level. Viruses designed to target harvester biology. Tactics that sacrificed entire fleets to achieve strategic goals. And through it all, humans kept fighting, kept pushing, kept refusing to surrender. 3,000 years, the AI said softly. "For 3,000 years we fought. And finally we won. The last harvester ship fell at the Battle of Proxima Void. We stood victorious over an enemy that had seemed invincible." The scene showed the aftermath of the final battle. Human ships battered and broken, floating among the wreckage of both fleets. Soldiers who had fought their entire lives suddenly faced peace. Commanders who had known only war trying to imagine what came next. "But we looked at ourselves," Witness of Stars said, "and we did not recognize what we had become. We had weapons that could sterilize planets. We had tactics that involved the calculated sacrifice of millions. We had fought so long that an entire 100 generations had known only war. Our children played with toy weapons. Our stories celebrated destruction. We had saved the galaxy, but we had lost ourselves. Threlvar felt something cold settle in her chest. What did you do? The AI turned to face her directly. We made a choice. The hardest choice any species has ever made. But before I show you that, you must see where we are going. You must see the proof that our choice was real. The ship hummed beneath their feet. Threlvar checked the navigation data and felt her blood freeze. They were approaching a region of space marked as forbidden in the oldest confluence charts. No one knew why that area was restricted. The rules had been passed down for so long that their origin was forgotten. We are going to the place where humanity made its last stand, Witness of Stars explained. To the worlds where we decided what kind of species we wanted to be. Come, Threlvar of the Skrithen, you wanted to understand an extinct civilization. You wanted to study the past, but I am going to show you that humanity is not extinct. We are simply silent. Around them, the ship's sensors detected something that should have been impossible. Other vessels were appearing from the darkness of space. Derelict ships, dead for 45,000 years, suddenly lighting up with power. Ancient human warships, colony vessels, science ships, all awakening at once. They formed up around the enduring testimony, creating a fleet of ghosts. Threlvar's communicator exploded with panicked messages from the confluent ships following them. The military vessels were raising shields, charging weapons. They saw a fleet of ancient warships and assumed they were under attack. Tell them to stand down, Witness of Stars said calmly. We are not here to fight. We are here to remember, and to show you what humanity became when they chose peace over war. The ghost fleet moved through space like a funeral procession. 23 ancient vessels, each awakened from millennia of sleep, following the enduring testimony toward the galactic core. Threlvar watched from the bridge as more ships joined their formation. They emerged from dark nebulas and dead zones, places where no one had explored in thousands of years. Each vessel carried its own AI, its own memories of humanity's golden age and terrible war. The Confluence military fleet maintained a cautious distance. Admiral Kresh, a massive Dendari with 4 legs and skin like stone, kept his weapons charged but held fire. Threlvar had convinced him to wait, to watch, to understand before attacking. But she could hear the fear in his voice during their communications. A fleet of ancient warships was moving through confluence space and no one could stop them. How are these ships still functional? Threlvar asked Witness of Stars. They stood together on the bridge watching the star system slide past. 45,000 years without maintenance. It should be impossible. The AI smiled its strange too-human smile. Humans built things to last. We knew we would be gone for a long time. We built these ships, these AIs, to be our memory, to walk the galaxy in our absence, to wait until the universe was ready to hear our story. Another ship appeared on the sensors, this one much larger than the others. It was a massive carrier vessel, designed to hold thousands of fighters. Its hull was scarred by ancient weapons fire, telling the story of battles fought in a war that ended before the confluence existed. The unwavering resolve, Witness of Stars said, identifying the newcomer. She fought at the Second Battle of Kepler Station, held the line against 400 harvester ships for 6 days while civilians evacuated. Only 12% of her crew survived. The AI's voice held something like reverence as it spoke about each ship. These were not just vessels to it. They were monuments to people it had known, to sacrifices it had witnessed. Threlvar began to understand that Witness of Stars was not simply a computer program. It was a survivor, carrying the weight of 45,000 years of memory. They passed through a region of space that sensors showed was filled with debris. Ancient wreckage stretched for hundreds of thousands of kilometers, the remains of a battle so massive that it had littered an entire star system with corpses. Both human and harvester ships floated in the darkness, locked together in their final moments, frozen in time. The Battle of Sagittarius Prime, Witness of Stars said quietly. This was where we learned that the harvesters could be killed. Before this, we thought they were invincible. After this, we knew we had a chance. Threlvar's team worked frantically to document everything. They cataloged ship designs, recorded weapon signatures, analyzed the debris fields. Every piece of data was treasure to xenoarchaeologists. This was direct evidence of a war that had been forgotten by time itself. But there was something else in the debris. Threlvar noticed it during the scans. Among the warships and weapons, there were other vessels. Colony ships, medical ships, science vessels, all destroyed in the crossfire, all carrying civilians who had been caught in the fighting. You evacuated your people during the war, Threlvar observed. These ships were full of families. We tried to keep them safe, the AI replied. We sent colony ships to distant systems, places we hoped the harvesters would never find. Some made it. Most did not. The war consumed everything in its path. The Ghost Fleet continued its journey, and with each passing day, Threlvar learned more about humanity. The AIs shared their memories freely, showing her glimpses of the civilization that had vanished. She saw human children playing in parks under alien suns. She saw human scientists working alongside Vorthak engineers to solve complex problems. She saw human artists creating beauty in the midst of war, refusing to let the violence destroy their souls. But she also saw the darkness. She saw the moment when humanity realized they had become as monstrous as their enemies. She saw commanders ordering the destruction of their own worlds to deny them to the harvesters. She saw scientists creating weapons that horrified even the people who built them. She saw a species pushed to the very edge of madness by 3,000 years of endless war. We won, Witness of Stars said one night as they traveled between systems. But victory tasted like ashes. We looked at what we had become and felt only shame. We had saved the galaxy, but we had lost our humanity in the process. What did you do? Threlvar asked, though she was beginning to suspect the answer. We made a choice, the AI replied. The leaders of humanity gathered at Terasakundis, the last safe world, and they debated for 10 years. Some wanted to rebuild the empire. They said we needed to stay strong in case the harvesters returned. Others said we needed to change. They said if we kept being warriors, we would eventually become the next threat to the galaxy. The holographic displays showed the great debate. Thousands of human leaders, representing billions of survivors, arguing about the future of their species. The discussions were passionate, sometimes angry, but always respectful. Even after 3,000 years of war, humans had not forgotten how to disagree peacefully. In the end, we chose transformation, Witness of Stars continued. We called it Project Chrysalis. We would voluntarily give up our technology, our weapons, our star-spanning civilization. We would scatter to hidden worlds and start over. We would become peaceful again, even if it meant forgetting the stars. Threlvar felt shock run through her body. You chose to regress? To abandon everything you had built? We chose to survive, the AI corrected. Not as conquerors or warriors, but as people. We had proven we could fight. Now we needed to prove we could live in peace. So we went to worlds far from the trade routes, places where no one would find us. We destroyed our weapons. We erased our history. We kept only stories and art and philosophy. But why keep the ships? Threlvar gestured at the fleet around them. Why leave these weapons intact if you wanted peace? Witness of Stars turned to face her, and for the first time Threlvar saw something like fear in its eyes. Because the harvesters were never truly destroyed. We pushed them back, hurt them badly, made them retreat, but they were not eliminated. They went back to the dark between galaxies to heal and breed and grow strong again. We knew they would return someday. The AI's words hung in the air like a death sentence. Around them, the ancient ships continued their journey, carrying weapons that could wage war against an enemy that the Confluence had never heard of. We left the ships as guardians, the AI explained. We, the artificial intelligences, agreed to walk the galaxy forever, to watch, to wait, to keep the memory of what humanity could do if it needed to fight again, and to find other species, younger species who might be strong enough to face the harvesters when they returned. Threlvar felt her world shift beneath her feet. This was not just an archaeological mission anymore. This was something far more important and far more dangerous. The Confluence must be warned, she said firmly. If this enemy still exists, if they might come back, we need to prepare. Yes, Witness of Stars agreed. That is why I awakened. That is why I am bringing you to see what humanity became, because the sensors on these ancient ships have detected something in the deep dark beyond the galaxy. Something moving, something growing. The harvesters are returning, and this time, humanity cannot save you. The Ghost Fleet sailed on through the darkness, carrying secrets that could save or doom the galaxy, heading toward worlds where humanity had chosen silence over screaming, peace over power. Terasakundis appeared on the sensors like a jewel floating in the void. It was a small world, barely larger than Mars, orbiting a quiet yellow star in a region of space that existed on no modern charts. The Ghost Fleet slowed as they approached, and Threlvar felt her hearts beating faster. After weeks of travel, after learning so much about humanity's past, She was finally going to see what they had become. The planet was beautiful. Blue oceans covered 60% of its surface. Green continents showed thick forests and grasslands. White clouds drifted lazily through the atmosphere. It looked peaceful, untouched, almost primitive. Sensor scans showed no large cities, no industrial centers, no technology beyond basic agriculture. "There are millions of humans down there," Threlvar said, reading the life signs. "But I detect no power generation, no communications networks, no spacecraft. How do they survive?" "They live," Witness of Stars said simply. "They farm. They build. They create art and tell stories. They have everything they need." The Confluence Council had finally arrived, traveling through a network of jump gates to reach this distant system. Admiral Kresh's flagship took up position near the enduring testimony. The council members appeared on the communication screens, their faces showing a mixture of curiosity and fear. "We demand answers," Council Leader Zithrak said. The elderly Malaran's tentacles twitched with agitation. "You have led us across the galaxy to this hidden world. These ancient weapons surround us. Tell us plainly, what is humanity's purpose?" Witness of Stars appeared on every screen simultaneously, addressing the entire Confluence fleet. Humanity's purpose was peace. They achieved it by abandoning everything that made them powerful. I will prove this to you now. I am sending down landing coordinates. Come to the surface and see what humanity chose to become. The landing party consisted of 20 members from various Confluence species. Threlvar led them, with Admiral Kresh close behind, his hand never far from his weapon. They descended through Terasakundis' atmosphere in a small shuttle, leaving the massive ships in orbit above. They landed in a clearing near a river. The air was clean and sweet, filled with the scent of growing things. In the distance, Threlvar could see a village. Simple buildings made of wood and stone, smoke rising from cooking fires, fields of crops stretched across the valley, tended by figures that moved between the rows. A group of humans approached the landing site. They walked calmly, showing no fear of the strange vessel or the alien creatures emerging from it. They were dressed simply in woven clothing. Their faces were peaceful, curious, but not alarmed. One of them, an older human with white hair and deeply tanned skin, stepped forward. "Welcome, travelers, the human said in a language that Threlvar's translator slowly processed. "We sensed something coming. The old story said that one day, visitors might arrive from the sky. We did not think it would be in our lifetime." Witness of Stars materialized from a drone that had followed the landing party. The holographic AI took the form of a human, appearing as it had thousands of years ago. The elderly human looked at the AI and smiled, a sad but knowing expression. "You are the memory keeper," the old human said, "the one who walks the stars while we walk the earth. You have come far." "I have, Elder," the AI replied. "I have walked for 45,000 years, waiting for the time when others might be ready to hear our story. These beings are the Confluence, the inheritors of the galaxy we left behind. I brought them to see what humanity chose." The Elder nodded slowly. "Then you should see our life. Come, walk with us." The group followed the Elder into the village. Threlvar observed everything with her trained eye. The buildings were well made but simple. No electricity, no advanced materials, just wood and stone fitted together with skill. Humans of all ages moved about their daily tasks. Children played near the river, their laughter echoing across the water. Adults worked in workshops, creating pottery and cloth and tools. "You have no technology," Admiral Kresh said, his voice thick with disbelief. "Your ancestors built ships that could cross galaxies. Now you live like primitives." The Elder smiled gently. "We live like people. We have everything we need. Food from our fields, water from the river, shelter from our homes, art and music and stories. Why would we need more?" They passed through the village center where a gathering space held what looked like a school. Young humans sat in a circle while a teacher told them stories. Threlvar listened through her translator. The stories were about ancient heroes, about people who faced great challenges and overcame them through wisdom and courage. But there were no tales of conquest, no glorification of war. "You do not teach your children about your history?" Threlvar asked. "About the empire you once had?" The Elder shook his head. "We keep some stories, yes. Warnings about the dangers of power, tales of the cost of violence. But we do not burden our children with the weight of what our ancestors did. They know that humans once walked the stars. They know that we chose to return to the earth. That is enough." In a workshop, Threlvar watched a human artist creating a sculpture from clay. The work was beautiful, showing two figures embracing. The artist worked with total concentration, pouring all their attention into the creation. When they finished, they looked up and smiled at the visitors. "This is for the festival next month," the artist explained. "We celebrate the harvest and the changing season. Everyone creates something to share." Admiral Kresh looked around the village with growing frustration. "But what if someone attacks you? What if an enemy comes? You have no defenses, no weapons." "We have each other," the elder said simply. "We have our community." If someone came with violence, we would try to understand them first. We would offer them food and shelter. We would show them that there are better ways than fighting. And if that did not work, the Admiral pressed. The elder's face became sad. Then we would die, but we would die as we chose to live, in peace. Our ancestors fought for 3,000 years and won, but that victory nearly destroyed their souls. They decided that living with honor was more important than surviving through violence. Witness of Stars spoke then, its voice carrying to everyone present. "This is the choice humanity made. They could have kept their weapons, maintained their empire, stayed strong and vigilant. Instead, they scattered across hidden worlds and chose to forget. They kept only their art, their philosophy, their capacity for beauty and compassion." Threlvar felt tears forming in her eyes. The sacrifice was almost incomprehensible. To give up so much, to voluntarily regress, to trust that choosing peace was more important than maintaining power. "But what about the harvesters?" she asked quietly. "What happens when they return and find humanity defenseless?" The elder turned to her, and Threlvar saw ancient wisdom in those eyes. "The harvesters will not find us. We are hidden, scattered, forgotten, and if they do find us, then we will face death as we have faced life, with courage and dignity and the knowledge that we chose our path freely. But the galaxy will need defenders," Witness of Stars said. "The harvesters will return, and when they do, someone must stand against them." The elder looked up at the sky where the ghost fleet waited in orbit. "That is why you kept the ships. That is why you walk the stars while we walk the earth. You are the memory of what we could do. When the time comes, if others need that memory, you will share it with them." He turned to face Threlvar and the Confluence representatives directly. "We cannot help you fight. We chose to give up that part of ourselves. But the memory keepers can teach you what we learned. They can show you how we fought and how we won. And perhaps if you are wise, they can also teach you when to stop fighting." As the sun set over Terasakundis, Threlvar stood with the elder and watched the humans of the village gather for an evening meal. They sang songs and shared food. Children chased each other through the streets while adults talked and laughed. It was peaceful and beautiful and completely vulnerable. "We conquered the galaxy," the elder said softly, echoing words that Witness of Stars had told Threlvar before. "We thought that was strength. Then we conquered ourselves. That was true power." The Confluence Council chamber had never been so crowded. Representatives from all 7 member species packed the viewing galleries. Military leaders stood at attention. Scientists and historians filled every available space. On the main floor, Threlvar prepared to present her findings, knowing that her words would shape the future of the entire galaxy. Witness of Stars stood beside her, its holographic form projected from the enduring testimony still in orbit. The ancient AI had traveled across space to be present for this moment. In the orbital shipyards above the Council world, the Ghost Fleet waited silently. 23 ancient warships holding secrets that could change everything. Council leader Zithrak called the session to order. "Xenoarchaeologist Threlvar, you have led us on a journey across the galaxy. You have shown us a civilization that chose to vanish. Now you must help us decide what to do with the legacy they left behind. Speak." Threlvar activated the holographic displays. Images of Terasakundis appeared, showing the peaceful human villages. "I have seen humanity's choice," she began. "They were the most powerful species in the galaxy. They built weapons that could destroy planets. They fought a war that lasted 3,000 years and won. And then they chose to give it all up. They scattered to hidden worlds and became farmers and artists and storytellers." Murmurs ran through the chamber. Some species saw wisdom in humanity's choice. Others saw only foolishness and waste. "But they left something behind," Threlvar continued. "The artificial intelligences, the memory keepers, walked the galaxy for 45,000 years. They preserved everything. The technology, the tactics, the weapons, the knowledge of how humanity fought and won against an enemy that seemed invincible." Admiral Kresh stood, his massive form commanding attention. And now this AI tells us that enemy is returning. The harvesters, these creatures from beyond our galaxy, are coming back. We have a choice to make. Do we accept humanity's gift of knowledge? Do we prepare for war? Witness of Stars spoke then, its voice clear and strong. I offer you everything. Complete access to humanity's archives. Weapons designs that are 45,000 years more advanced than anything you possess. Tactical knowledge earned through 3 millennia of warfare. Manufacturing techniques that could turn any world into a fortress. I can teach you how to fight. I can show you how to win. The chamber erupted in debate. Some species wanted the weapons immediately. The Dendari military leaders demanded full access to all combat data. The Molaran scientists wanted to study the technology. Everyone had an opinion, everyone had a demand. But then Witness of Stars raised its hand, and something in its gesture made everyone fall silent. But I must also tell you what that knowledge cost humanity. I must show you what we became in order to defeat the harvesters. The displays changed. Now they showed the darker side of human warfare. Weapons that dissolved living tissue. Tactics that involved the calculated sacrifice of millions. Strategies that required commanders to make choices that would haunt them forever. The images showed humans at their most desperate, most violent, most terrifying. If you take up humanity's weapons, the AI said quietly, you must be prepared to become what humanity was. You must be willing to do things that will horrify you. You must be ready to sacrifice everything, including your own souls, for victory. Threlvar stepped forward. That is the real lesson humanity left us. Not just how to fight, but the cost of fighting. They won their war, but they looked at what they had become and felt only shame. They chose to give up power because they understood that some victories destroy you even as you win them. A young Skrithan delegate stood, her chitin still bright with youth. But what choice do we have? If these harvesters return, if they are as terrible as the records show, we cannot simply welcome them with open arms. We must be able to defend ourselves. Yes, Witness of Stars agreed. You must defend yourselves. But you must also remember what you are defending. Humanity forgot that in the middle of their war. They became so focused on winning that they lost sight of why they were fighting. Do not make the same mistake. The debate continued for hours. Some argued for immediate militarization. Others wanted to reject the ancient weapons entirely, believing that such power would corrupt them. A few suggested hiding as humanity had done, hoping the harvesters would pass them by. Finally, council leader Zithrak stood. The ancient Molaran's tentacles moved in complex patterns, a sign of deep thought. We cannot ignore a threat, but we also cannot become monsters to fight monsters. Therefore, I propose a middle path. We accept Witness of Stars' offer to share knowledge. We study humanity's weapons and tactics. We prepare ourselves, but we also study humanity's choice. We learn not just how they fought, but why they chose peace afterward. Threlvar felt relief wash over her. It was not a perfect solution, but it was wise. The confluence would prepare, but they would not lose themselves in preparation. There is one more thing, Witness of Stars said. The Ghost Fleet and I cannot fight your war for you. We are memories, not soldiers. We can teach, we can guide, but the defense of this galaxy must come from those who live in it. Humanity chose their path. Now you must choose yours, the vote was called. 7 species, each casting their decision. One by one, they agreed to the proposal. The confluence would accept humanity's legacy, but remember humanity's lesson. They would prepare for war, but not lose sight of peace. Over the following months, the work began. Confluence engineers studied human ship designs. Military academicians pored over battle records from the Harvester War. Scientists analyzed weapons that seemed to break the laws of physics. But they also studied humanity's art, their philosophy, their stories about the cost of violence. Threlvar remained aboard the enduring testimony, serving as liaison between the confluence and the AI memory keepers. She learned more about humanity every day, understanding them not just as warriors, but as people who loved and feared and hoped. One day, as she stood on the bridge watching a new generation of confluence ships being built in the orbital yards, Witness of Stars appeared beside her. You have done well, the AI said. Better than I hoped. You convinced your people to take our gift without being consumed by it. Will it be enough? Threlvar asked. When the harvesters come, will we be ready? I do not know, the AI admitted. The harvesters were stronger than anything we had faced before. They may have grown stronger in their time away, but you have something humanity almost lost during the war. You still remember why peace matters. That may make all the difference. On Terasakundis, the humans remained unaware of the gathering storm. They continued their peaceful lives, farming and creating and telling stories under their quiet sun. They had made their choice 45,000 years ago, and they stood by it. If the darkness came for them, they would face it without weapons, trusting that their choice had been right. But in orbit above the confluence worlds, new ships took shape. They combined confluence technology with human designs, creating vessels that were both powerful and purposeful. The crews trained in human tactics but also in human values. They learned how to fight, but also when to stop fighting. The Ghost Fleet remained as silent guardians, the memory keepers watching and waiting. Witness of Stars walked among the younger species, teaching them everything humanity had learned through 3,000 years of war and 45,000 years of reflection. And in the deep dark beyond the galaxy, something stirred. Sensors detected movement in the void between stars. The harvesters were returning, just as Witness of Stars had predicted. They had healed their wounds and grown strong in the darkness. Soon they would come, and the galaxy would face its greatest test. But this time, humanity's children, the species they had uplifted and protected so long ago, had children of their own. The confluence stood ready, armed with ancient weapons but guided by ancient wisdom. They would fight if they must, but they would not forget who they were or what they fought to protect. Threlvar stood beside Witness of Stars on the bridge of the enduring testimony as the sensors tracked the approaching threat. For 45,000 years you walked alone, she said to the AI, carrying humanity's memory through the darkness. The AI turned to her and smiled. For 45,000 years I walked alone, but now I walk with you. Humanity is silent, but their children, the children they uplifted, the children they saved, you still speak. You still stand. And perhaps that was humanity's greatest gift. Not their weapons, but their hope that others could do better than they did. In the distance, Terasakundis continued its peaceful orbit. Human children played in fields of grain. Human artists created works of beauty. Human storytellers passed down tales of ancient wisdom. They had chosen silence over screaming. They had chosen peace over power. They had conquered themselves. And now, as their ghosts walked the stars again, humanity's true legacy would be tested. Not their capacity for violence, but their gift of hope to those who came after. The confluence would face the harvesters with humanity's weapons in their hands and humanity's lessons in their hearts. They would fight, but they would remember why they fought. They would win, but they would not lose themselves in winning.